What's up, guys? It's Matt here, coming at you with another retro deck profile. Today we're going to look at my Dark Plant list that I used to win this cool lad mat. I've been playing it a lot at locals. Initially, I wanted to test and take it to Indy for whatever event they decided to do, if they decided to do a really big Edison event. But essentially, I was like, okay, I think the deck has done all I need to do with it. I've decided to grind it at locals, and normally I take a different deck every week, but I decided to do this for like 3 weeks in a row and play it a whole bunch, and I played it a little bit online. I realized that it probably caps out at about a 70% win rate, which like is good, but like at a larger event, like the deck loses to a lot of stuff. It has a good frog matchup and has a great value matchup, which is like two of the most prevalent matchups in the format, obviously. But it does lose to a lot of stuff that you can see going around. It randomly loses to things like Blaze Accelerator and Grand Mole, and it also really loses to deck dev. So you have to kind of side for deck dev. So that's kind of the stipulations with the deck and things like that. So we'll just get right into the list. For the plants, of course, we have the 2 Lonefire Blossom. This card is awesome when you open it with like the Foolish Burial, because you can do like the full combo and have 2 Lonefires, and you can actually do stuff with the Lonefires after because you play more than just the standard plants because of the Dandylion and the Tytannial. We play more than this, obviously. I did draw Tytannial quite a bit. That's another reason that the deck kind of stinks, but you do have options to mitigate that, so it is what it is. And the card is just a house in certain matchups. 3 copies of Mystic Tomato. Again, this is like, if there's a lot of destruction by not battle and this card not resolving, it kind of hampers your deck because you can side out one of them in certain matchups, but you want to be able to keep your plant count high for your Mark of the Roses because that's kind of how you win. But Tomato does have access to things like Sangan, which is great to float into and then sack for Caius. Plaguespreader, Gale, and then Spirit Reaper. These are the additional targets off of the Tomato. I left in Spirit Reaper. I know some lists opt to not play it. I was playing this list with like a bigger zombie package with like Goblin Zombie and Mizuki, because Tomato can float into those. But in the end, I decided things like Gale were just better, and then you could still use value with Plaguespreader and Spirit Reaper, and I didn't end up missing the Goblin Zombies or the Mizuki. They just didn't feel as good. And then I did keep in the Spirit Reaper. I decided to cut Card Trooper, but I wanted to keep the targets for Debris Dragon relatively high, just because I didn't want this card to be dead because it is a power play, because Black Rose's second effect is relevant as well. So being able to use Black Rose with this card is good. I do not play Pot of Avarice. I did at one point, and I thought the card was bad, and ended up boarding it out a ton. And so because Black Rose being at 1, you can't make 2. I've thought about bumping Debris Dragon up to 2, but I decided not to. And 1 was just fine because of how easy of access you have to Sangan, which again gives you access to Debris Dragon. And it is a high impact normal summon mid to late game, which the deck does need. It does need good normal summons mid to late game that also work with Mark of the Rose, to where you can put out a bunch of guys and then just kill them. Essentially the game plan is do some chip damage, and then when they put out a guy, you just Mark of the Rose, summon some other big guy, and then just kill them with whatever they have. 3 Caius, because this deck can support it super easily. Card's really good. I decided to go with 1 Lyla and 2 Rykos for the Lightsworn engine. Lyla was actually surprisingly good. I wanted an option going second, and I feel like Lyla provides that as opposed to 3 Ryko. So I definitely think that with the 1 Lyla earned its spot. It's really good. And the deck plays Call the Haunted, so it's like good to do off Call the Haunted as well. And if it ever gets like bottomless or whatever, you have like your cards that summon banished guys if you want to like bring it back and then do stuff and then continue to like go for game. The deck just has a ton of bombs, including 1 copy of Dark Arm Dragon, because again it is a bomb, and then our 1 copy of Gorz. Obviously we have like the equip balls and stuff, but like they're typically not going to stick around. Like you usually don't give the monster back with Mark of the Rose unless you're just in a really bad spot. You're typically doing it to kill them, but that is the entire monster lineup. Is 21 monsters onto the spells, the aforementioned 3 copies of Mark of the Rose, and of course the 1 Brain Control. So this is our OTK package, or not necessarily OTK, but like our game shot package when we want to like go for game, bring out a bunch of guys, and kill our opponent. I do play one copy of D.D.R as well because of all the banishing that happens, not necessarily like through the game naturally, but also through Mark of the Rose and things like that, because we do banish for that as well. And we could bring back our Plaguespreader after we've stacked for it. There's a whole bunch of stuff that we can do, but D.D.R was definitely a really, really good inclusion. The aforementioned Foolish Burial, send Plague, send Dandylion. You can even send Lonefire and do the Lonefire Foolish Call play when you need to get access to that. For consistency, we have plenty of darks with Allure, so we could play Allure, and we also play a copy of Charge to go get our Rykos and or Lyla. I do end up boarding this out and like one Ryko typically in some matchups, or this and a Lyla in the matchups that it's bad against in decks that don't play back row. So that's one of the sides that tend to happen. And then the Heavy and the MST for back row removal. We side deck additional back row removal, but that's all we really need for the main board. Because again, we have Lylas, Ryko, Caius. Don't need main deck dust. We play trap cards in terms of summoning guys from our banished. One turn, one escape, and one call. Escape was okay. It is typically the first card that gets boarded out because there are a lot of stuff that just like happens throughout the game. Like they're gonna side deck things like oppression and things like that. So escape is typically the first card to go with things like that, and for consistency cards. So I decided to cut. I usually board that card out, and I may end up cutting it. This would be the card that would be the second Debris Dragon. The trap lineup is in fact like a bunch of one-ofs. I know it's weird, but it's one of those things where I never wanted more than one of them. Obviously Trap Dustshoot. One Wing Blast because I didn't want more discard cards. I thought the D.D.R and this were like enough. I felt that the deck doesn't maintain hand advantage as well as it could because of things like you have to like stack for Plague, and like the only thing that replenishes your hand is Sangan, and then because we cut the card trooper, so hand size typically isn't big enough to support more than multiple discard cards, unfortunately, outside of the two that we play, just the one Wing Blast. So Mirror Force and D-Prison, Torrential, and Judgment. I'm not playing like any bottomlesses or anything like that, but I thought that the one D-Prison warranted a spot because we want to deal with monsters on the board. So onto the extra deck. One Armory Arm that I never made, and I don't know if I ever have, but there were options where I could have made it, and I just decided I was like, I don't think it's the correct play. But there were times where it could have come up, and I just chose not to make it. But I had the setup for it a bunch of times. Catastor and Android, Goyo, Brio, and I do play the Iron Chain. I did make Iron Chain. I have made it a few times. You do need access to a 6 dragon for Debris Dragon and Ryko. When I swapped out the zombie package for the Lightsworn package, I essentially swapped Revive King for Iron Chain Dragon, and that's easy cut. Probably the best synchro on the extra deck: Black Rose Dragon, Ancient Fairy Dragon. Again, you just need another dragon just in case, and it's a wall, and it works, and you could special guys. Sometimes you just need to build a wall until you can draw your Mark of the Roses. And then Armor Master. I am not playing Power Tool because typically the only way to make it is with Gale. And if I'm using Gale, I really would prefer to make Armor Master. It's just preference. I don't know. This card is helpful. I like the card. I think it's good. And I think it's better than Power Tool, even though despite the equips, because of the fact that there are times when you do board them out. I'll show that in the side deck, but you do board out equips occasionally anyway, so the card's not going to be used in game 2 and 3 sometimes, because you typically just like won't have enough to use the effect. Stardust, and it's not a dragon. Stardust Dragon, which is a dragon, so you can make it off of Debris. Colossal Fighter, Red Dragon, and I decided to go with Dark End over Thought Ruler. I kind of waffled on it, went back and forth, but in the end I decided to go with Dark End Dragon. Mistworm, and then Chimera Tech, because we side deck the Cyber Dragons. Although I thought about cutting them to 1 in the sideboard. Sideboard 2 Cyber Dragons. Like I said, I thought about going down to 1. The side deck again is also a bunch of one-ofs, which I was like, I never wanted more than like 1 copy. I don't know. It's weird. It's one of those things where it's like I never wanted to see multiples of any of like the side deck cards, except for the ones that are just like complete blowouts. One copy of D.D. Crow. Again, your hand size is small. Your -1 plays, you typically can't afford to go -1 in the deck. This is a bomb in a lot of matchups, so we are going to side deck two Vanity Fiends for sure. Card is insane in certain decks. And then going first, what I'll typically do, if it's a high impact matchup, I'll side in 2 of these for 2 of the Caiuses, and then going second, I may swap one of them out to bring the Caiuses back to 3 or whatever, to do like 2 Caius, 1 Vanities. Again, it just depends on the matchup and what my opponent is playing. Like Frogs, if they're on like Soul Exchanges and stuff like that, if you see Soul Exchange, then maybe this card isn't as of high impact. So you just have to keep in mind some lists are on it, some aren't. Like the hero versions typically aren't, things like that. So it depends on what you see in game 2 and 3, and you just have to adjust accordingly. 1 copy of Thunder King and 1 copy of Kaiku. I was originally on 2 Kaikus instead of 1, and then I realized how good the value matchup is for this deck, that you really don't need additional side for that. Like the 1 Kaiku is fine. You don't need a ton. Again, Kaiku's also insulation for deck dev. That's another reason, like with like the Cyber Dragons and stuff like that, you need insulation for getting absolutely blown up by that card. This is a card that doesn't get blown out. Same with this. I like Thunder King in the Blackwing matchup. I think that card is really good against Blackwings. But in the end, I decided to go with 2 Dust Tornadoes instead of 2 Kaikus or 2 Thunder Kings. And then 1 Snowman. This card's good against Hero Beat. It's a debris target as well, so that's why another reason why I like it. It's a level 3 debris target, so it gives us Black Rose. That's it for the side decked monsters. I do side deck 1 Mind Control. So this is for the like Ryko hamster decks, or decks that like set a ton. So typically I'll take out 1 Mark of the Rose for Mind Control because I can resolve hamster if I take it because I have the Rykos in my deck. So I'll typically just like I'll swap out 1 of the roses for this if I'm playing against those decks, because again, Mark of the Rose doesn't do too much against set boards. 2 copies of Book of Moon to deal with your opponent's Vanity Fiends and Christias and things like that, because you can't do a ton. I mean, you can obviously like Mark of the Rose, take it and like try and kill them, but like you can't put extra monsters on the board with your like calls and your return and your D.D.R or your Dark Arm or anything. You can't like put extra guys on the board to try and kill them through it. So I feel like the Book of Moons are really good for those. And again, Chainable Back Row is good. Again, mentioned 2 Dust Tornadoes. Again, I wanted to be able to stop Whirlwind early game, and it's good against Hero Beat as well to have like removal. I did lose game 2 to Hero Beat in the final for the lad match because I drew heavy MST Dust all in like the first like 6 or 7 cards, and I was like, dang, I can't put any pressure on my opponent at all because all I'm drawing is back row removal. And then the last 2 side deck cards are 2 Pulling the Rug. They work against Frogs and like the Hero Frog decks and Frog Monarch decks and all the variants, whatever. Pulling the Rug's really good against those. So I think I'm probably done with the deck for a little bit just to like try out other things. I've been playing this at like every single locals for like probably a month or a month and a half, and I'd like to move on to other things and just see what else is out there and kind of mess around with other things. But let me know what you guys think of the deck, and thanks for watching, guys.